Just like when the Warden and the Paunch launched, the upcoming Twisted and the Twilight will invariably reshape what modders can play with, so let's take a bit of a deeper dive into what those options will be today. Let's start with units, because they're always one of the easier options to account for. Zotes are probably the showpiece unit in my eyes, and I expect one of the first mods we'll see after launch is a hero option based upon them, kind of like what we already had on the tabletop with the wizard ones. I would also expect some Lizardmen mods featuring the Zotes, either completely featuring them or at least their models, will likely be not too far behind as well. The Great Stags will also probably end up with community-made feral variants pretty quick, and I also expect the Bladesingers models will be cribbed for the Shadow Dancer in Mixer's mod, given that they look like the spitting image of one already. I also expect that the Spellweaver, will be made a good base for other mods. I will say I do prefer the community versions of the Spellweaver already, because I was never a really big fan of 8th edition giving the Wood Elves way too many lures, but if nothing else, at least more tools for the mod community is never going to be a bad thing. Over on the Skaven side, their units have opened up a ton of great options. Brood Horrors are a pretty easy unit to either scale up to Great Pox Rats for Clan Pestilins, or to scale down to Giant Rats for some cheap monstrous units, while Mounted Lords could also be scaled down to make Rat Riders into a squad. Mutant Rat Ogres and Gorich will quite likely make things like Augmented Rat Ogres and Storm Fiends a pretty viable possibility, at least up until we get a Thanquol pack in Game 3. I also expect that Packmasters will get given a Master Molder Lord option, maybe not immediately after launch, but probably pretty quick down the road. I do expect there will be some mods centered around the special units in this as well. As I've said before, while I think it'll take a while, I do fully expect the community will eventually give the Sisters of Twilight an unmounted option, hopefully one that factors in their ability to come back from the dead so long as the other sister is alive. How I would imagine it working could be done by simply giving their unit a small amount of regeneration whenever one of the two members is dead, with that heals before resurrecting thing like what we get from Invocation of Nehek, and one that turns back off at 50% health. The Sisters' numerous skills regarding flying units could also make for a pretty easy base for someone to make Ska with. Unlike the Sisters, Ska is actually all about flying units in the lore, so also unlike the Sisters, he's a melee unit, and he could be even differentiated further from the Sisters by having some bound bird spells with him. Picture like what we sort of got with Old vs. New's Morrigan, and you're on the right track. Perhaps coming a bit quicker, however, could be making Ariel into a legendary lord. Now, we've sorta already got that in the game with the Lorelorn Forest mod. I'm not sure how they're planning on handling the launch, unfortunately, but it would be really nice to turn the legendary hero unlock from CA into a full-on legendary lord unlock instead. Or heck, in order to keep everyone happy, what they could do is make it a dilemma or a mod configuration menu option to let the user select whether they want Ariel to be a legendary lord or hero, as we've already got with some of the other characters that modders have created. Now, more just thinking out loud here, I do wonder if Throt will be given some other toys to play with. Like, him having a Brood Horror mount is already inaccurate to the tabletop, so why not have a modder lean into that? Personally, I think it would be hilarious to see him unlock the ability to ride a Hellpit Abomination as a mount option down the line. I'll also be surprised if Squeal Gnawtooth doesn't get turned into a legendary hero by the community, probably using the Packmaster as a base. And if they really want to go for a deep cut, they could give Squeal the option to call forth Gutsnager, since we've already got Wolf Rats in the game now. But as interesting as all the unit stuff is, I'm actually way more impressed with what the non-unit options in this mod can potentially unlock this time around. First things first, Footlords are actually viable once again, so hopefully now someone can make a Loreful Mounts mod and get Wolfric and Lokir off their mounts entirely while taking the bird away from Teclis. But even beyond that, I hope this also means modders won't be afraid to create Footlords of their own this time from here on out. I have noticed that a lot of user-created legendary lords and stuff almost always end up mounted, and it's easy to understand why. A Footlord is effectively worthless in the current game. But once the Twisted and the Twilight comes out, that kind of option goes back onto the table again. I am also going to assume Mixu is just going to out and out steal the Forge of Dieth mechanic for his own Dieth mod, given that he's already 90% of the way there as is. I would also like to see a tweaked version of the mechanic being ported to, say, the Dwarven factions, given how well it syncs up to their playstyle, and perhaps the Chaos Dwarves and Old vs. New. And with a bit more effort, I could even kind of see a Gifts from the God version of this mechanic being ported over to Chaos, so as you accomplish specific tasks, the Gods of Chaos can give you either a temporary bonus, maybe a squad, or maybe a unique item. Speaking of Chaos though, Throt's Flesh Lab is just begging to be used in demonic fashion. Accepting more and more gifts from the gods might make a squad better and better, right up until you accidentally turn them into a chaos spawn instead. And given how complex this gameplay element looks, I would imagine it'll be quite some time before we get anything based upon this, but I still have absolutely zero doubts that we will get stuff based upon this. Lastly, while less being about having new mods, I'm still just kind of curious about how the public order system will impact many mods. In theory it should be a direct translation, but in practice the effect on balancing would be huge. Quite a few of the modded races have a terrible economy paired up to an unhappy populace, but at least you can normally just deal with the rebellions as they pop up and keep on expanding. But this new system means you might just get saddled with an even worse economy now, as your low happy settlement population will do next to nothing until it's made happier. I'm super happy CA implemented this change, though I do expect it means we're going to see sort of two waves of mod fixes this time around. One shortly after release to bring mods just up to the current standards so that they don't cause crashing, but then a second wave probably like a month or two later after release just to try and make sure modded factions actually feel balanced with these new mechanics. But anyways, that's just my opinions on things. What are you hoping to see from the modding community with these new tools? Chat with me down below. As always, I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you all next time.